We have an amazing guest on our show today. She has requested to remain anonymous. For those of you watching on YouTube, you will notice that her camera is off. For those of you listening on our other platforms, that's Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, and Audible, I am intentionally not stating her name. I take the privacy of my guests on this show as serious as I would any guest in a hotel. I want this platform to be a safe space for my guests to be able to discuss important topics without being concerned about any backlash for any reason. I also am sure to never mention any of the names organizations unless it's for promotional purposes only and is approved by the organization. So let's welcome our fabulous guest on today's episode. She is an experienced hospitality professional. She is a mommy to a beautiful baby that I have not had the chance to meet, and one of the most composed people that I have ever met, especially compared to myself, because I'm not very composed. So thank you so much for coming on to my show.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. You were my first guest, so you're very, very, very special. I know I gave a little bit of an introduction starting off, but if we could start off by you introducing yourself a little bit. Obviously, we won't say your name or where you work, but just tell us a little bit about your work history, specifically in the industry. What did you do before you joined? Maybe tell us how long you've been in hospitality and why you even decided to start working in the industry in the first place.
Okay, so a little bit of like backstory. I want to say back in like it was like before COVID hit. So it had to be in what, 2018, 2019-ish. That's when I ever, like my first ever like housekeeping job. I was just a housekeeper and I was just doing rooms there. It was a little different because with military you typically stay like longer, so like it's more kind of like the stayover services versus people like new
Yeah.
people coming. A lot of people that were there, they've been there for like months and months on end. I actually have done like working in front of house, so I have worked in what is it called, front house, the desk. I don't know why I couldn't think of the name. Yes, the front desk. And I've done night audit before. I literally did night audit for like a week. I couldn't do it. I don't know. That's different. But I do prefer working in back of house. And then after I did the front desk and then I did audit for a bit, I did go back into doing back of house, working as a room attendant. And then this is all from like what, before COVID, so 2018, 2019, all up until present time today. So yeah, that's kind of like my little backstory with hospitality.
I know you said like you prefer back of house. You tried front of house, you prefer back of house, and now you're in a position where, you've been in housekeeping for quite some time now. What would you say has made you stay?
I want to say what made me like, I like because even though I'm like very like, drawn back and kind of like more reserved, I do like when it's like chaotic. I like when it's the slow season. Like it's always like something to do. I think that's what I like. You're never going to be like sitting still, like twiddling your thumbs, like, oh my gosh, I don't got nothing to do right now. You're always going to have something to do. It's something to be done that needs to be done like all the time. So I think just like keeping busy, I like that aspect of it.
I understand that. I always say it takes a little bit of crazy to want to do what we do. Not to say that everything's always going crazy or bad, but like I need something to rush to like it feels like a superhero type feeling. Like
Yeah,
Batman
seriously.
would not be great in a law abiding town,
Yeah,
Like if
that
he
is.
fought all the crime in Gotham, he would be like, okay, time to go somewhere else dangerous. So I get
Mhm.
in my first episode, I actually talk about like a typical work week in the housekeeping department in hotels.
Mhm.
Uh, and a lot of what I talk about in the episode is Sundays.
Mhm. Good
Sundays,
old fun.
while Sundays, while they're crazy, it doesn't always mean that they're a disaster, right? You have the right team in place, the right managers in place, the right resources available. They will always be busy, but some hotels might see beautiful Sundays. Some hotels might see Sundays where they roll rooms every Sunday. So I want a different perspective from another professional in the same part of the industry that I was in to kind of just shed some light on what that looks like for you, Sundays and the entire work week, for you and your team.
Okay. So I'll start with Sunday. So basically with Sundays, like you said, those are the, high turnover days. Typically the whole hotel is checking out. Everybody has what, upwards to 20 rooms they have to clean in a day per room attendant. So yeah, those Sundays basically, it's all hands on deck. Whoever is scheduled, and then that's another thing, hopefully everybody who you have scheduled will come to work. It's coming off a Saturday. Some people might not make it in Sunday for whatever reason. So I feel as if like with Sundays, if you have your whole entire team there who you have scheduled, your day, it shouldn't be too bad at all.
Tell me, now you've been working in hospitality for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and part of me kind of has an assumption of what you might say or around what time you might say, but I'm not going to assume. I'm just hear you out.
Mm-hmm.
What is can you describe the longest shift you've worked, or like the most chaotic shift you've worked in the time that you have been from first room attendant job to the job you're doing now? What is that day? Everybody has that day. Like I have a day called Massacre Monday in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has that day where they're like, I can remember this day. I never want to relive it. Can you
Mm-hmm.
remember that day and describe it for me?
Oh my gosh, I laugh because oh my goodness. So I would say like if you want to say like the longest, maybe a 14, 15 hour day typically. Well, yeah. And then the day to describe it, like to describe that day, I just remember like all hands on deck. Like when I say all hands, we're talking about the general manager, the assistant manager. We got maintenance upstairs. We got valet. They upstairs helping out. Like it's just like all hands on deck because of something that went. I don't even remember like specifically, but because I feel like with those type of days, I try to like put them all the way in the back of my head. I don't even want to remember, what transpired. I just know I made it through the day and it was a day. But it's chaotic. You have like I said, you have all these people upstairs helping. You have other things going on. Like some room attendants, some just really don't care. They're gonna work at a slower pace. They're gonna not have their rooms to a certain standard. So you have to deal with, okay, do I keep calling this room attendant back or do I just keep fixing the things that they're, messing up on? It's like that, like, debate you have going on in your head as well. It's like you want to hold them accountable, but at the same time, you got guests that need to check into this room. So it's like, it's hard to hold people accountable when you're trying to like, have the guests satisfied, but then on the same token, you have to hold, the room attendant accountable because,
Mm-hmm.
they not doing what they need to do. And then just, I can't think of the word, what I'm trying to say, but just trying to like manage everything as far as checking the rooms. You're trying to, tell the room attendants, hey, can you clean, not yeah, basically clean a little faster. But then on the other hand, like you haven't even ate all day, so like you hungry, you starving, and you probably done caught a little attitude with somebody, and it's like not them. You're struggling, like it's a struggle. So it's just like it's bad. So I just remember that day, just hungry, tired, frustrated, and then just feeling defeated. Like, what did I do to not, how could I have prevented this from happening? And then some of the things is just kind of out of your control. Like you have to you have to communicate with the front desk throughout the day as well. That's a whole nother job within itself.
Front desk versus back of house.
Yeah, that's a real thing. Um, but yeah, that's what I can describe as like a crazy day.
title of this podcast is Behind the Surface, because really it's kind of like behind the scenes. But behind the surface, what is happening behind what the guests see? Now the guests see when we show up, hi, welcome to da 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 da. The guests see us knocking with a smile. Is there anything else I can get you? But when the door closes, what really is going on? Like you said, you might catch a little attitude, you might slip up because maybe you ain't had nothing to drink, nothing to eat, you get an attitude back, but you can't just start going off on people, right? But
Yeah,
at some point you need an outlet. And unfortunately, a lot of times my outlet was when I got home.
letting it
And
all
so,
out.
yeah, it impacted my life. It impacted my life seriously. Even like earlier in my career and earlier in my relationships at home, even if I didn't come home, even if I didn't have bad days at work, I just had long days, I would
Hmm.
come home so spiritually and physically and mentally drained that
Hmm.
I would come home to the question, uh, how was work? And I used to look like, do I really have to tell you? Do I have to tell
Yeah,
you
and then
everything?
yeah, and I totally understand. Like, I can resonate with that because it's like your family, your loved ones, whatever, they don't understand. Like, if they don't work in the industry, they do not understand. So they're just like, well, why you just ain't do that? Do you think if
Oh,
I could have just did that, I would have did it? Like,
oh.
I did. So it's like they don't understand.
So one of the things that I did in my first episode, I have different like pop-up tips and stuff at the bottom, because not only do I want this to be a platform for conversation and discussion, but I also want it to be a platform where we can kind of educate and help each other. Because being in the industry, I never had a coworker. I wasn't friends or cohorts with any of the other managers in the area at other hotels. There was no platform provided by the company that I worked for to be able to lean on other housekeeping department leaders to ask for advice, to ask for tips and tricks. It's nice to be able to speak to you and go, now that you've done the position and you've done it for almost a year now, what would you advise another person aspiring to be in your position or run a department similar to your size, similar to your type of hotel? What are some tips, tricks, and advice that you have to prepare for Sundays, to uh, be able to like bounce back from any normal issues that you experience throughout the week, whether that's room attendants not showing up or room attendants giving you attitude, or just any of the frustrations you experience? What are those frustrations and what do you do to be able to manage that?
That's a good question. I feel like with this industry, you have to like you have to realize like at the end of the day gotta end. Like it cannot keep going on. You there 9, 10 o'clock at night, it gotta end. So it's like keeping like that in my mind, like, okay, like if it's a crazy day, like, okay, like I know the day is gonna end. It might be a little chaotic right now. However, I know whatever is going on, like let's just say, a situation happened. I like to like think about that situation as the day ends and think about, okay, if things were to go kind of left this time, what did I do here that I could do differently if it were to happen again? So it's just, I feel like all about just like learning from like whatever, it might be a mistake on your end, it might be someone else, just taking and then taking accountability. Like even if you do like mess up or do something wrong, just like seeing it and being like, okay, what did I do here? What can I do the next time? That way this does not happen. And I know it sounds so like simple what I'm saying, because in the moment, those chaotic days, it's not always, it doesn't feel so simple. It feels just like the day is never going to end. When am I going to go home? Like I'm stressing out. Like, my manager is like asking what's going on. Why are y'all, why are you still at the hotel? What's happening? And it's just like just trying to not to make yourself overstimulated, because like that overstimulation can happen and you can go down, like you can really feel down about yourself. Like I've been there. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how I'm gonna get 15, 20 rooms done within the next hour or so. It's just like thinking like that. So I feel like having a team, because right now I do have a team. So having like, if you can have the supervisors or you can have inspectors, whatever people call them, but having a team and like making sure the tasks are delegated correctly and making sure they're done correctly as well. Because, you can give, task out, but if they're not being done correctly, that's a whole nother thing. It's just like so many things can like fall through the crack and really just like mess up like later. So I would just like my advice would just be like hold your composure and hold your composure and just still realize like okay, the day is going to end. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get through it somehow and just try to learn from your mistakes basically.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's great advice. Thank you. Do you still travel a lot?
So no, unfortunately, well, fortunately and unfortunately, because I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am in.
Yeah.
I'm not traveling as much due to having a baby.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of hard. Well, not hard, but you can't really do as much as you did like with a baby as far as like
Yeah.
traveling goes. And especially if you're, a single mom, it's kind of hard to just like get up and go and get up, and plan things like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
traveling has slowed down.
I get that. How has working in your field changed the way that you traveled though? Like even before becoming a mom or getting the position that you have now, once you started working in hotels, did you find yourself picking hotels differently? Did you find yourself doing anything differently when you checked into the room? Did you find yourself doing stuff when you checked out?
Yeah, I would say like I feel like I have a loyalty. I'm like I want to stay at this hotel because that's where I work at. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna, stay at that hotel, and then when I get there, I'm gonna make sure, because it's like how it is, how the industry is, and work in it. So it's like I want to make sure, like, okay, I'm taking out, the pillowcases. I'm, stripping the room before I leave. You don't have to do it, but it helps out. Like
Me
having that.
too.
Not having that step as a room attendant, having to strip your room, that takes off what, 10 minutes off, from cleaning the room. So I do like to do that. And then as well as like leaving cash tips because I was not a tip leaver. I will say that I would be that person. I would leave something that I didn't want. I would just leave it. But other than that, I would say those are like the things that I do now.
No, I love that. I always try to leave a cash tip. And my partner, while he'll help me strip a room, he will definitely always let me know I'm only doing this because of you. He'll say that. So I know if he traveled
Right.
by himself, he probably wouldn't. I would much rather enter a room that is
Hmm.
stripped with no tip than to enter a filthy room with $5 on a dresser. I
Yeah.
stripped the heck out of that room, and we were a one night stay. We came in very late. We took showers in the morning, and I stripped the heck out of that room.
Mm-hmm.
I put it in little piles. Put their duvet insert off to the side. They pillows over there. I took the little one. We only used one bag of trash. I bagged that up,
Yep.
sat it by the door. Don't girl.
Hmm.
We ain't even use the sofa on the couch. I flipped up the pillows and pulled it out for presentation.
Oh my gosh.
Don't worry about it. You ain't got to worry about pulling it out for me. You don't have to worry about forgetting to pull it out. Just in case the
Right.
last guest that stayed here left the sheets on the bed. Now you got a housekeeper getting in trouble because the last housekeeper didn't check this. I got you. I pulled it
Hmm.
out for you. In our text, I mentioned that I would spend some time focusing on hospitality professionals who have children. And you specifically said, good, because that's not talked about enough. And I love that you said that. I wanted to ask you, tell us, what did you mean by that? Why do you think it should be talked about more?
It is like I said, it's just not talked about enough. I just recently went to a luncheon with some people at the job that we were celebrating an employee that was there for 20 years. And we had some like other people come in that work at other places that she worked with previously. And it was like two of them were mothers and they were like, yeah, like it's hard. I think they were like what general managers, maybe an assistant manager of a hotel. And they were just saying like with their babies, like just your work schedule and the amount of work you're doing, and then coming home and then having to, because being a parent, that's a job within itself.
Full
So
time.
coming home and having to do a whole nother job, that's what I meant by that. Because I don't think people really like realize it. They think like, oh, you just work in a hotel and you just do what you do and you just go home. And it's just like, no, like I have a lot to do here at the hotel. It's a lot going on, especially with back of house. And then just coming home and just like, typically people with no kids, they can come home loose off and kick their feet up, but no, you gotta kick into that next shift. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's hard. By the time you're done with that shift, it's time to go to bed. And then you do it all over again. So
All
that's
over again.
kind of what I meant with that. And I know I'm like newly stepping into that. And I'm like, I salute all the mothers, especially if you're doing it by yourself. I don't know how people do it by themselves. I don't want to think about it.
I do
Mm-mm.
not want to think about it. I've seen so much when it comes to
Mm-mm.
mothers. I have seen mothers having to leave because their children are in danger somewhere. I've seen women go into labor at work. What changes do you think, in a perfect world, could happen that you would suggest for hospitality industries or organizations to help us with these challenges?
Are you talking about as far as like kids, like having
Support for children, support for moms, support for soon to be moms, support for anything within that area.
I would say maybe like if they can take into account of people, being mothers and having to have childcare, childcare can end at a specific time. I don't know, maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock. So maybe trying to accommodate and making it so where they can get off at a specific time. Because, with working back a house, you don't know what time you're getting off every day. It varies. You could get off at 3 o'clock one day, and the next day you can get off at what, 6, 7 o'clock or something. So I don't know, maybe trying to, and it's hard if you're, working back of house trying to get off at a specific time. And that's another thing, if your team is not, there with it. Like if you have a team, like, your team is reliable, rarely calls out and stuff like that, maybe it'll be easier to like have like a set time, but it's just hard, I would say.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
One thing that I've always imagined, I understand that there might be several other obstacles to being able to do this, but when I think about it, I'm like, well, uh, for example, at school, there are daycares at schools where students can drop their children off in order to be students, and professors can do that as well in order to be professors. There are daycare centers at a lot of different organizations where the professionals work at that organization in exchange for a percentage of their checks to go
Mm-hmm.
to supporting their kids. Daycare prices are expensive, and you want employees. Why are we working on building a recreational center for guests or
Hmm.
building a 15th meeting space?
Right.
Can we get a daycare?
Yeah,
We get
that would
a
be
small daycare and you have 3 shifts and you have somebody there for during the 3 shifts to a professional to take care of that child, and that will probably retain a lot of your employees. That might
that is
help some of the employees that can't afford daycare stay. That might help some of the employees that have to leave at a certain time be able to stay longer to turn those rooms for you. That might help. And when you think about the percentage of women in the industry and the amount of women that are mothers, it's like, well, why we don't have that? What's going on? Big major companies making billions of dollars every year.
Yep, that is true. Like you said, most of the time it's women, are room attendants and working, back of houses and everything like that. So yeah, that makes total sense.
With so many kids, 5, 10 kids,
Yeah.
several children. Like, oh man, charge per head. You know how much money be coming back to your hotel? The housekeepers working and half their paycheck coming back because they got 7 kids in your daycare.
Right.
We love our jobs. We love the chaos and all. We love getting to know our coworkers. We spend more time there than we do at home, and we build a
Mhm.
personal connection with these organizations. I do think that at some point there should be like childcare services in at least large enough hotels like resorts and stuff. I think
Yeah.
why not, right? But
Yeah.
don't worry, don't worry. this platform gonna get huge, and then people gonna hear us, and then
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then something might happen. Do you feel like hospitality professionals are often seen as machines rather than people with personal lives? And maybe machines aren't maybe machines isn't the right word to use, but do you feel like they're often not seen as people that have valuable lives outside of their jobs?
I would say, for my experience, like, you know, being in this role, I've almost been in the role for almost a year. I feel like it depends on your staffing, your management, and everything. Like, how is your boss and all that stuff? With my experience, I will say, you know, she's a mother herself, so she gets it. She's not like, you know, I'm not getting treated or any of the other staff, because I know my staff has, you know, kids and lives, and you know, that work life balance. I feel like it is very like I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's very stable. Like, it's not like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, something that I have planned this afternoon or something like that. Like, I don't have that worry, I would say. And then I will say, you know, I've only been at this one place as, you know, this role. So it's like I don't have a lot of, you know, experience like as you've seen multiple managers. You've been around, you know, a way ton more, you know, than me. So, you know, whoever your manager is, your boss or whatever, it plays a huge role. Because I've seen it at other hotels where you would have like the general manager, she's just, you know, talking to another employee, talking to the sales coordinator or something like that, just talking about the housekeepers. And it's just like, you are supposed to be working with the housekeepers. You're supposed to be there to support them. You're supposed to be there to encourage them. You're supposed to be there to help them with whatever they need to get done with for the day, because they're trying to turn rooms for you, like for your hotel. So I will say, you know, having that manager, you know, that is very caring and understanding, and like they got your back basically. You don't feel like you just out there on your own and on a sinking ship. So yeah, I would say that.
Absolutely. No, I love that. A very involved, especially general manager, is so much better. One thing that a lot of people don't realize, and especially in housekeeping or operational positions, because even outside of hospitality, like Paul used to work at a moving company, and he
Hmm.
experienced this too. And I was glad he got to experience this because I was able to say, hey, that's how it is in housekeeping. Leaders have to earn what I like to call street creds. You don't
Hmm.
really get that respect from your team until you show them I can push a cart and clean the room too.
Yep.
If
Hmm.
you are that, you can have done it for years and you decide I am going to be the manager that sits at my desk and just do this administrative job.
Hmm.
That is the moment where you don't get that respect from your team. Before, I used to feel like, why do you need to earn respect in that way? How come I can't do a good job at my desk?
Hmm.
And still get the same amount of respect. And it's not that I wouldn't have respected my boss any differently. It did give me a genuine like, oh man, I can get behind this. It feels like a team effort when you have somebody that knows the experience like you or is willing to learn the experience with you. One of my
Hmm.
insecurities being an EH or being an AEH or being a housekeeping manager, any of the leadership positions, assistant housekeeping manager, even. As you know, one of the things I like to do is train.
Hmm.
I love training. I can get in the
Yeah.
room, I'll do training, I'll do retraining all day. Like, okay, well, let's try this. Okay, you don't remember how to do that? Okay, well, let's try this tool or step. Okay. I love
Yep.
making up stuff like the mirror trick.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so that was what I thrived on. And I used it a lot. One, because I like to do it, but two, I used it a lot because I felt very insecure in the fact that I did not start off as a room attendant. Most of the
Hmm.
leaderships that most of my leaders that I had worked their way from room attendant all the way up to, big
Yeah.
bosses. And I took what people like to call a shortcut. I went straight from school right into a manager position because I had a
Right.
degree and I had to learn everything really fast. And I used to
Hmm.
feel insecure because my first team made me, they kind of bullied me. My first team was like, you can't tuck
Right.
a bed. How you gonna tell me to tuck a bed? I ain't making no beds for you. You know, you can't
Yeah.
even do it. So I had to learn really
Hmm.
fast, and I felt the need to like show my skills in the rooms as much as I could because I'm like, look, I can do it. I can do it. Will you respect me? That was my form of kind of gaining respect. And now looking back on it, I realized that's not how you do it, but it was an insecurity of mine because it is so important to see leaders who understand you and who don't mind putting themselves in your shoes and going the extra mile for you. That makes you more willing to do the same thing for your team and so forth. So I love that. What advice would you give to other hospitality employees struggling with a work-life balance?
Trying to think, 'cause it all depends on like what you know have going on. Like a lot of people single. I feel like it's easier. If you don't have anyone to come home to, you're just coming home to yourself. So I feel like you could plan your day out differently as far as like the work life balance. I'm trying to think. Just trying to like strategically plan out things if you can, because some things don't go as planned, but still having a plan, still trying to execute that plan, even if the plan doesn't go how you expected it to go, having a kind of like a not like a backup plan in mind as well to make sure you're having that work life balance because it is so important. If you're not, having that good work life balance, it's gonna catch up and you're gonna like it's gonna it's gonna come out eventually. So it's really important. So I would just say strategically planning out your days if you can, if can, because some people don't like to work with a plan. I don't know how they do that, but trying to have you a plan and everything like that, I think really plays a part and is important. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, planning is a very big thing for me. Now, if you one of them housekeepers or operational managers or people that's like, baby, it's 5 o'clock, I'm leaving. I don't care what room not done. We're not
Mhm.
talking to you.
No. No.
You have given what time you have to make sure the job is done and done correctly and so much more time. You deserve the
Yeah.
vacation, you deserve the time off, and that time is there. And I think that documenting that so that way when it is time to request that time, you can specifically explain why you deserve it. Because sometimes it's not that your boss doesn't want to give it to you, it's probably that they can't because they too have a job to do. But no, I can't thank you enough for taking time to talk with me. I really do hope that being on the show today does inspire like other professionals or moms or just anybody to reach out and like share their experiences and talk a little bit more. I hope it just inspires people to really listen to what you say and try it and go to work and say, hey, I haven't tried that. I hope it like kind of turns a light bulb on in somebody's mind. And you shared a lot with us today, so thank you.
When are you coming home?